After a relatively quiet start to the year, Adidas has just released their newest top-end speed boot, the X Crazyfast Plus. And this new boot represents a real change of pace for Adidas, as it's different than anything they've put out in the last 5 years. I just got to try on these boots, so in this review I'm going to be going over the design, the build quality, and all of the new features of the X Crazyfast Plus. And if you are interested in picking up a pair, I'll leave a link below to the Upper 90 website where you can find yours at a discount. Now let's get straight into it by talking about the design of the new X Crazyfast. And the first thing you'll notice with these pair of boots is that they are extremely thin. The upper is made with Adidas's new Aeropacity Speedskin Plus construction, and it's so thin that it's almost translucent the closer you get to look at it. And due to this razor thin upper, the Crazyfast is also the lightest football boot that you can get on the market. This means that it's lighter than the Puma Ultra Ultimate and the New Balance Furon V7. And then another design element that kind of sets these boots apart is that you'll notice they have a standalone tongue. Now, it's hard to find a standalone tongue in almost any other speed boot these days, and it's also different than Adidas's last model, the X Speed Portal, which was a one-piece upper construction. Now, with the standalone tongue and the razor-thin upper construction here, a lot of people have been making comparisons to the F50 from around 2010, and I can definitely see why they're making those comparisons. The F50 was one of Adidas's most popular boots of all time. It pretty much revolutionized the speed boot industry when it first came out, so I can definitely see why Adidas is trying to get back to some of those basic ideas with this model. The tongue itself is really minimal as well, in keeping with the rest of the football boot. It's extremely thin, almost feels like a thin piece of felt. And then the only bulk in the entire football boot, I would say, is just towards the heel area, where you have two plush heel liners on both the left and right side to just give you a little bit more lockdown and help cushion your heel and avoid any possible blisters when you're running. And then just beneath that Aeropacity Speedskin upper, you have Adidas's Aero Cage. Now this is essentially what's going to be bordering your feet on the inside of the boot, and it's really just there to add a little bit more structure to the entire boot. And then as far as the outsole, the Crazyfast is going to be using the exact same plastic tooling that was used in the Speed Portal. It's missing that carbon fiber insert that we had on the original Speed Flows, but overall it's still a really snappy and high performing outsole. But other than that outsole that's the same as the previous model, everything about this football boot is new. It's not something that we've seen in any of Adidas's recent speed boots, and it's also different to almost anything else you can find right now. So we've touched on the design of the Crazyfast. Let's talk about the build quality and whether or not these boots feel like they're going to be durable. So the Speedskin Plus upper itself is a woven synthetic, and although it is very thin and translucent in some areas, it does feel like it has some structure to it, and it feels like it could last up to a season. It doesn't feel quite as flimsy as the upper on the Puma Ultra Ultimate by comparison. And then I do appreciate that that Aero Cage structure just beneath the upper provides a little bit more shape, structure, and support to the boot as well. One of the only build quality elements I'm not too thrilled about is the tongue itself. It feels so thin, but beyond that, it just feels a little bit cheap. I feel like they could have gone a little bit further as far as making it feel more premium, seeing as that this is a high-end and expensive football boot. But as far as the build quality of this football boot goes, I think the biggest question for most players is going to be how well this stands up to playing on the field, not necessarily as far as wear and tear goes, but as far as withstanding challenges. Because if you watched the Premier League last season and you saw a lot of players wearing the Puma Ultra, that is one of the thinnest uppers that you can get on the entire market as well. And I saw several different instances where players were stepped on and their boots completely ripped apart. And if you spent several $100s on a new pair of football boots, the last thing you want is them getting put through the shredder on the field. But for people who are going to want the build and appearance of a football boot that's similar to the F50 from more than 10 years ago, that's just some of the risks that you're going to have to take. And if you even look on the Adidas website, they're really embracing the minimal aspect of the X Crazyfast Plus. It's really what they're going for on this football boot. They want it to be as thin as possible. They're trying to deliver a really barefoot feel with this pair of football boots. And seeing as that that's the vision that they're going for, I think that the build quality here pretty much executes it perfectly. So let's move on to the comfort of these football boots. How did they actually feel on feet? Well, I was actually pretty surprised when I first put these boots on. I felt that they offered a more unique fit than I was expecting. Most modern speed boots tend to really taper towards the toe box, and I have pretty wide feet, but I found the Crazyfast to be pretty accommodating in that area. I thought they were pretty wide fitting towards the toe box. I think the only speed boot that offers a wider fit would be the New Balance Furon V7 Pro. And then regarding sizing, I'm a typical US 10.5, and these boots fit perfect true to size. It felt a little bit weird trying on these really thin synthetic athletic boots because I've been so used to wearing leather football boots recently, but overall it still felt pretty good lacing them up. One specific thing I will notice is that because this is a thin plastic synthetic material, it does tend to bunch up a little bit when you're walking, but you get used to it pretty quickly. These boots really hug your feet in the midfoot as well, so that's really going to contribute to give you that barefoot sensation on the ball. But one of my favorite things about the fit of these football boots is the adjustability that you get from the separated tongue and the centralized lacing system. Because these days, almost every single speed boot that you can find is a one-piece upper construction, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if there's a football boot that doesn't fit you with its one-piece upper, it's pretty much one that you're not going to be able to wear because there's no adjustability. So if you want to add more space throughout the midfoot or throughout the toe box, you really just don't have that option. Whereas when you're wearing the Crazyfast Plus, you can have some customizability to make them feel exactly how you want them to. The sole plate still feels really snappy under feet. That's something that hasn't really changed from the last model. And the only con would be you're not gonna get a lot of protection in these boots, as I already discussed. But honestly, I'd be more concerned about the boots getting damaged when I get stepped on, because if I'm being real, anytime someone steps on your foot, no matter what boot you're wearing, it's gonna hurt. And most importantly, as far as comfort is concerned, these boots are more comfortable by a mile, in my opinion, than the X Speed Portal Plus that they replace. I think the X Speed Portal model, the upper was just a little bit too rigid and it didn't offer anything better than the other one-piece upper speed boots that are on the market, whereas this is a more unique value proposition and it's just a better fitting football boot. Now, speaking of the value proposition of these football boots, the Crazyfast Plus is really expensive. It's retailing for $300 USD, which makes it a more expensive football boot than anything that Nike, New Balance, or Puma has to offer. Now, that being said, I like a lot of the tech in this football boot, and it's something that you can't get from a lot of its other competitors. And if you're looking for the lightest weight speed boot possible with a standalone tongue as well, this might be one of the only options that you have to look at. So pending the durability of these football boots and how long they can last throughout the season, I'd say that they could be worth it depending on what you're looking for. But obviously there's a lot of competition on the market for speed boots, so how does the Crazyfast Plus stack up against other options? Well, as I've talked about already, it's the lightest football boot objectively that you can find, and it has the thinnest upper, so it's gonna offer you probably the closest to a barefoot feel. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's for everyone. I think if you have a narrower foot shape, you might be more inclined to go with a boot like the Nike Mercurial Vapor 15 or the Superfly 9. That's because the Nike football boots are going to have a little bit more of a streamlined shape and a one-piece upper construction that's just going to keep your foot a little bit more snug if you have a narrower foot shape. Then if you're on more of a budget and you're looking for a really thin and lightweight speed boot, but you can't shell $300 right now, I wouldn't go for any of the takedown models that Adidas offers. Instead, I would point you towards the New Balance Furon V7 Pro. It's one of the best speed boots that you can get on the whole market. It's a great fitting football boot. Wide toe box, really thin as well. Before the Crazyfast came along, it was the lightest boot you could get. So what are my overall impressions of the new X Crazyfast Plus? Well, I think Adidas have executed on an amazing speed boot here, and I think it's actually better than what Nike's currently offering in the Vapor 15 and what Puma has in the Ultra Ultimate. Adidas have been able to bring back a lot of the design aesthetic that I really liked about the older F50 from about 15 years ago. And I also think that this is the best speed boot that Adidas have put out since the X Speed Flow several years ago as well. I think the $300 price tag might put a lot of players off these football boots, but if you have the money and you're interested in a really top-end pair of speed boots, I definitely think you should go for it. These boots offer really unique sensation on feet, so I definitely think they could be worth a try. And that does it for this video. If you've gotten the chance to try on the new X Crazyfast, let me know what you think of them, and also let me know what your favorite speed boots are down in the comments below. Thanks, and I'll see you on the next video.